Welcome everyone to the first NDP Leadership Debate. My name is Alexandre Bouleris and I'm the MP for Rosemont La Petite Patrie here in Montreal. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are located on Indigenous unceded territory. We recognize that the Kenyan-Gahaga Nation are the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Historically, Montreal has already been known as a gathering place for many First Nations, and today a diverse Indigenous population as well as other peoples reside here. And it's in the spirit of respect for connections to the past, present, and future that we recognize the ongoing relationships between Indigenous peoples and all other members of the Montreal community. As Mark Carney's Liberals increasingly govern like Conservatives, the time has come for New Democrats to discuss how best to strengthen our party and reach out to those who share our values of social, environmental, and economic justice. An economy that includes everyone. Without further ado, I hand the floor now to Carl Bélanger, who will moderate tonight's debate. Good evening, everyone, to all those who are watching from home for this first debate in the leadership contest for the NDP. First debate held here in Montreal, live, and we'll have 90 minutes to debate the issues
that matters to Canadians, that matters to NDP members, that matters to progressives. And Canadians will have a chance to hear from them, some of us for the first time. The teams were developed with submissions from people across the country, from NDP members who submitted questions, who are interested in this race. And they are as follows. They've been selected, 5 of them. Affordability and the cost of living, Indigenous justice and reconciliation, winning and organizing in Quebec, role of labor and workers, and the NDP's path forward. Alors, les candidats ont reçu ces thèmes à l'avance. Ils ont eu...
Candidates have received the themes ahead of time, but they've not been shared the specific questions. So thank you to the members of the NDP who submitted these questions in the leadership contest. So without further ado, please help me welcome the 5 candidates. We have Rob Ashton, Tennille Johnston, Abby Lewis, Heather McPherson, and Tony McQuail. Over the next 90 minutes, we'll have a bilingual debate. Our goal is to obtain 60% of French and 40% of English. Viewers at home can watch in the language of their choice. We have simultaneous translation, which may also be used by a number of our candidates as they see the need. So thank you to our interpreters who are going to help us understand each other better this evening.
Rules that we need to follow. Each candidate will get 45 seconds for opening remarks. There are 5 debate teams. I've named them earlier. 1 question per team, and each contestant will have the opportunity to answer. Then there will be a debate, an open debate for 8 minutes. There are 2 rounds of rapid-fire questions, which I'm going to ask to get to know people a little better. And then we have another 2 teams at the end to conclude this debate, and closing remarks, 45 seconds again for each contestant. Les candidats ont reçu l'instruction de répondre aux questions dans...
Candidates have been asked to answer questions in the language in which they will be asked, and the opening and closing remarks must be in French. Candidates who do not obey with this rule, I'll have to interrupt them, unfortunately, and it will be the same rules when the questions will be asked in French. And for open debate, we'll ask them preferably to answer in the language rather the question was asked in. The order of the opening remarks, the positions on the panel, and the closing remarks were determined by a random draw. We'll begin with Heather McPherson. People in Canada are experiencing very difficult moments right now. Many families are doing everything they should, but they are still having a hard time nonetheless. They need a party that stands up for them. That is the NDP. And it must again be the NDP. I'm running because we need a leader who brings people together, who unites everyone and who opens doors and who gives space for everyone. A leader who will work with the base and has the sufficient experience for the party. We'll hear from Avi Lewis now. You're working much too hard, and nonetheless, you're having a hard time making ends meet. And you know why? Because a handful of large corporations are increasing the price of everything, filling their pockets in the process. In this context of a crisis, we can't use the same old prudent recipe or formula we had with the NDP in the past. We have to have a tax on wealth. We need public options, a new Green Deal for Canada. These are pragmatic solutions and popular solutions as well. These solutions will meet this crisis, the daily emergencies, rally our base, build the movement again, and win. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. McQuail now. I'm a father-grandfather, and I'm a biological farmer. I'm a militant for political economic justice. The 4 R's are my theme: redistribution, regeneration, and a redesign. We represent a premiere. The majority-based uninominal system needs to be replacement. We need proportional replacement in our electoral system to rebuild a government which is working for the people and for the environment as well. Thank you, Mr. McQuail. Mr. Rob Ashton now. I'm Rob Ashton. I've spent my life in Vancouver working on the docks. I'm defending the workers so that they can live with a good wage and in all due dignity. Today, wealth is filling the pockets while the rest of the people are paying the price. I understand the challenges facing real people. NDP was founded to give voice to workers. And this is what I want to bring back to the fore. If you want an NDP that wins, one that's ready to fight, I'm your guy. And now, Tennille Johnston. Good evening, my name is Tennille Johnson, a Lickistow woman, an Indigenous person from Campbell River in BC. I'm a mother, a social worker, and a municipal councillor as well. And now I'm running to become the leader of the NDP. We need a leader who understands the difficulties Canadians are facing. And I will learn French because it's very important to do that. Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Well, the ice has been broken. The debate has been launched. I would like to remind everyone of the rules for questions. Each candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question. Then we'll have the open debate afterwards for 8 minutes.
English. And here's the questions. We know that there is a cost of living crisis. Millions of Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. The price of essentials, the price of food, the price of many goods continue to rise. Housing comes to mind, of course. Income inequality is at record levels. Yet in the last election, the NDP came forward with many proposals, ideas like investments in non-market housing, cap on grocery prices, but instead they chose Mark Carney. So which policy proposal are you putting forward to address the cost of living crisis? And I'm going to start with Mr. Ashton.
Thank you, my friend. You see, we built this country, but we're getting squeezed while billionaires are cashing in. We, when I get voted in as leader of the party, we're going to put caps on the prices of groceries, on the internet that we all use, and on our cell phone bills. You see, my Good Jobs promise guarantees a good job for everybody that wants one. But most importantly, we're going to give more power to the working class. And we're going to take whatever power from the CEOs that we can take from them, because all the power belongs to workers.
Merci, Monsieur Ashton. It's now the...
Thank you, Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. We need to approach this at all levels from every way we can, including a guaranteed livable basic income, right to a national housing that's public, whether it's co-op or other public models. We need to invest in housing that's accessible. We need to help Canada feed Canadians. We need to break down interprovincial trade barriers for food producers and be able to feed ourselves through our own agricultural means. We have such an amazing opportunity with so many farmers, and Tony will probably speak to this later, where we have more than enough folks doing the great work to feed our country, but we have to enable them to do it. It was great to see other barriers broken down between provinces, but they left food behind. We need our food.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, your turn.
The cost of living is not an issue. It's an emergency, and it's an emergency caused by market failure. What else to call it when Galen Weston is worth $18 billion and Canadians are skipping meals to feed their kids? The market is failing to provide essentials at a price that people can afford. And in an emergency, we expect the government to step in. That means a public option for each of these necessities. Price caps, sure, to stabilize the price of groceries, but then public grocery stores to lower them. A public provider for phones and internet, a public housing developer and construction companies to build 1 million non-market homes. Public is not a dirty word. It's how we guarantee Canadians a dignified life.
Thank you. Ms. McPherson.
The cost of living right now for Canadians is skyrocketing. People in Canada are struggling right now. And what we can do, the things that we could do right now to help those Canadians include things like putting in place my plan for housing. And that starts with declaring a national housing emergency so that we can mobilize the funds that we need to build homes so people have somewhere to live, so young people have a shot at owning a home, so folks that are living on the streets in our communities across this country get the supportive housing they require, housing like co-ops, housing like housing that we know Canadians across this country deeply, deeply need. That's the one thing I'd be working on.
Thank you. Mr. Burkwell.
My friends, I first ran in 1980. I've been listening to speeches and great ideas like the ones we've just heard for over 45 years. But unless we start fixing our relationship with the first-past-the-post electoral system, none of this will come to pass. It certainly hasn't in the last 45 years in a complete, comprehensive, and well-organized way, because we sometimes get stuff in through a minority government situation. We have to deal with first past the post, and that's why my first R is representation so that actually we figure out how to get a hold of the levers of power and then bring in proportional representation so that there is some hope that the great ideas we have and are starting to put forward don't get disappeared with another phony majority government that isn't ours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McQuail. It's now time to open the debate to all contestants. We have 8 minutes, and we've heard a lot about problems, but I'd like to hear more about solution, concrete solution. Ms. McPherson.
So I have a jobs plan for young people. We know right now there is a crisis for employment for young people across this country, and we could put a plan in place. We could put a plan in place that made sure that we could use the Canada Summers Job Program, but make it year-round. Invest in a green climate core program, the care economy, in trades, in careers that young people can start on. Put a bursary in place, a student grant to help folks with an apprenticeship, or starting their university or their college career. I think that would be a great solution to get young people working.
Anyone disagree? Ms. Johnson.
Maybe just not necessarily disagree, but go one step further. I think we need free post-secondary education. This has been a goal, something I've been trying to champion for probably about 20 years since I was a part of the student movement. We have to have free post-secondary education. We have an insane amount of pressure on our economy because we don't have people to fill the jobs that we want to fill. And students can't go into post-secondary education and then graduate with a mountain of debt and then try to survive in the world that we have today. So free post-secondary education would provide that pathway for young people to go into the professions that they want to go into and not just what they have to go into due to the pressures of the cost of living.
Carl, we all have great solutions, and you're going to hear a lot of them tonight. They all cost money. And we face this question of like, how are you going to pay for it? I just want to remind everyone that we live in a society that is awash in wealth. Big banks in Canada made $50 billion last year. Big oil made $40 billion just a few years before that. We need a government that has the courage to fight on behalf of all of us and go and get the money where it is. So just as important as the public options, and we're in a period of market failure, we need the government to step up and step in. We also need a 1% on the 1%. We're proposing a wealth tax of 1% on the 1%, just that little bit, which Galen Weston is not even going to notice. A rounding error on his household budget could generate $25 to $40 billion a year. We need to go get that money and redistribute it in the form of universal public services for everyone.
And Mr. Ashton wants to jump in, and Mr. McQuail is going to follow.
Yeah, you bet. So, look, cost of living is ridiculous in this country. I got a 21-year-old daughter living at home right now. Madison's her name. And she'll never be able to move out, which is fine. I love her dearly, but, you know. But what we're looking at is we're looking at houses that are unaffordable, rents that are unaffordable. And then you compound that with the price of food. That's why an NDP led by me would be pushing caps on grocery prices. We have to triple the amount of houses that we build in this country. Public houses, co-op style. Because that's the only way we're going to make life affordable for young people, as well as people my age. We also have to look at the Bank of Canada. See, the Bank of Canada has a single mandate right now, and that's to lower inflation. But who cares about a low inflation rate if we have no jobs? So the second point that we're going to be making the Bank of Canada look at is looking at jobs, a promise for every working Canadian to have a job. Those are the two promises that we're going to make sure that the Bank of Canada leans on to help deal with the affordability crisis in this country.
Mr. McQuail.
Carl, we have to help people understand the obscene discrepancy of wealth in our society. And if I told you you had 1 million seconds to live, you'd have 11 days. But if I told you you had 1 billion seconds to live, you'd have 31 years. And if I looked at how people are living on the street in Ottawa when we're at the CLC forum, they don't have any seconds to live. So, yes, we need a fair tax system. We need to go after the offshore tax havens. I think we need a much more progressive income tax as well as a more significantly progressive wealth tax. We've been in a society where the economists and the elites of society have really built a very effective wealth accumulating system or a concentrating system. We need to be talking about how we create a distributive economy where the wealth that's created by the 99% actually gets to stay with most of them and doesn't just get sucked up to the center.
Tony, that's exactly why we have to talk about the role of the government and the public sector and public ownership. We have a situation where Carney's only idea is to give our money to corporations to hope that the market somehow fixes the problem. That's what his big new housing agency and housing plan is all about. Right now, we have housing starts slowing down and construction workers being laid off. The market is failing us on every front, and that's why the government has to pick up the ball and put those construction workers back to work with public construction companies and a public housing developer. We cannot expect the market to solve these problems.
I mean, speaking of billions of dollars readily available, we can stop funding fossil fuel industries. We can take that $18 billion back and actually put it into good public programs. We can put it into healthcare. We can change what our country looks like if we stop providing grants to major profiteering industries. It would change the way our country functions from every level. And just a quick note here, we just saw a Liberal quit today because Mark Carney decided to sign an MOU with Alberta to push a pipeline through my province of BC. And that will never happen under my watch, ever.
Well said to Neil.
Yeah. And the thing about, well, the pipelines, I wish we could get a refund on the pipeline the Liberal government bought last time. I mean, I had a Liberal saying, you know, we're going to use the money we make on this pipeline and use it to fight climate change. I said, that's like having a drug dealer saying, we're going to sell this dope and start a rehab program. Like, it is just insane where we are sending our expenditures. And the idea that a liquefied natural gas terminal, a pipeline, and more mines are going to create a nation-building project when what we need is investment in what people need across this nation is just ridiculous. And I mean, we have the ideas for what to do, but to do it, we have to get into government.
All right, we have about 90 seconds left, so Ms. McPherson and then Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. And you know, one of the big nation-building projects we could be investing in is investing in housing, investing in healthcare. You know, healthcare is a nation-building project. And when I see what Danielle Smith is doing in the province of Alberta to fundamentally change the direction of healthcare in this country, to privatize our system, to take away the single-payer system that so many Canadians cherish and depend upon, that's a project we should be fighting for, is our healthcare system, our public, universal, single-payer healthcare system.
Mr. Ashton, you have the last word on this topic.
Les gens sont tannés, et moi aussi.
People are fed up.
Figured I'd slip
Carl,
that
you're
one in.
supposed to reward him for this effort.
I know, I should give him bonus points, right?
So look, if we want change, serious change to happen in this country, we have to vote for the party of change. The Conservatives and the Liberals, every time each one of them are in power, they say, we're the party of change, vote for us. They're not the change. They're one and the same. We can see how Carney is running the country right now. I wouldn't even classify him as a small C Conservative. That guy's a bigger C than Mulrooney was. We must vote NDP, MPD, for change in this country. That's what we have to do, so we can take these plans that we're putting forward and put them together to make life better for Canadians.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ashton. On va passer maintenant en français.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashton. We're going to move on in French now. So we're going to speak about Indigenous justice and reconciliation. It's a huge topic, of course, but we know that the New Democrats have often worked on these Indigenous issues in the past, notably through Ed Broadbent, who fought to include Indigenous and treaty rights in Section 35 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, Mark Carney is moving forward with a budget that cuts funding for Indigenous programs and services and legislation that could violate the government's obligation to obtain the free, prior, and informed consent in major decisions. So we're going to start with Ms. Johnston. How do you think the federal government should advance reconciliation and justice for Indigenous peoples? So let's stop paternalism towards First Nations. Reconciliation. We must guarantee access to drinking water to Indigenous nations. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Reconciliation is huge. What should the federal government do? Well, under Carney, reconciliation is moving backwards. These projects are ignoring the Indigenous projects that are written in the law and are not obtaining free, prior, and informed consent. And it's about finding each missing woman and disappeared Indigenous women and girls. And it's about free and safe transportation in every highway of tears in the country. It's justice towards Indigenous peoples. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. What should we do to advance reconciliation? Well, it's clear. The roadmap has already been created. It is in the calls for action from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee and calls for justice for women and girls, for murdered and missing women and Indigenous girls. The NDP really wants to advance reconciliation. It's in danger right now. When it comes to housing, we must make sure that the housing solution be adapted and sustainable. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Mr. McWhale, what is your vision to advance reconciliation? Well, Bill 5 is about the report on the Commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mr. Ashton, over to you. On the issue of reconciliation, what should the federal government do to advance reconciliation? Well, it's very important for me to work as equals and respect Indigenous rights, to respect the rights and obtain their free, prior, and informed consent from their Indigenous communities. And also ensure the respect of all the calls for justice. So this is a huge field. We talked about the Commission's report, of course. So it's now time for debate when it comes to the issue of reconciliation. Who would like to start? Mr. Lewis. Well, we have to say that as the Carney government is going backwards, the leadership on the Indigenous rights resides with the NDP.
And of Laurie Idlout leading the charge on C5. Leah Gazan's bill for the red dress alert, as we are now in the 16 days of activism leading on gender-based violence, leading up to December 10th. All of this talk of nation-building projects that has consumed the oxygen of our political conversation in Canada. They're big, manly things with huge work camps entailed in remote areas. The impacts on Indigenous women and girls are intense, are horrifying. And we have activists in our party, these incredible leaders like Laurie and Leah, who have been leading and talking about the importance of funding shelters, of funding services, of the frontline services in communities and in Indigenous communities. And I want to say again in English that the notion that public transportation, housing, water, roads, these fundamental things are solutions for the crises in Indigenous communities cannot be lost track of when we get into the conversations about law and abstract principles like reconciliation.
Je rappelle que le débat se...
So I'd like to remind you that this debate is in French, but the open debate can happen in both languages. So Ms. McPherson and then Ms. Johnston. Thank you so much. And clearly, no one can build without the agreement of First Nations. For instance, for each project,
n'arriva pas
did not obtain the agreement of First Nations. And the First Nations are the stewards of the land, and it is necessary for each project to obtain consent from Indigenous peoples. For me, that's why Bill C5 is terrible.
Nations have tons of shovel-ready projects that can not only allow our economy to thrive, but create hundreds of thousands of jobs and arguably help save our planet. We need to enable our nations in a way with our party so that we're seeing them as the governments that they are. We are not opening a pathway so that our nations can contribute in our party in a way that's meaningful, true, honest, and supported, and we need to do that work. We need to close the infrastructure gap. If we close the infrastructure gap, that alone is going to bring such an amazing economy through Canada. But we're not doing it. We're approaching nations with projects that we think are best for them versus sitting down and saying, what do you have on your books? What are you ready to go with? And let's partner on that and let's bring that forward. Our nations are a huge asset in this country and we don't use them as that asset.
Monsieur McQuail, je vous vois hocher de la tête. Là. Vous êtes d'accord?
Well, My friend
Do you agree?
addressed this, but I was at a conference in October that included Indigenous representatives talking about the things that they would like to do in terms of agriculture in their communities, environment, housing. As we need to do across Canada, we need to talk to people in their communities, find out the context of their needs and what they think could solve their problems. I'm a farmer. I'm a black wire and bale twine kind of guy, and fixing problems and dealing with things is what I do daily on my farm. It's what people do on their own communities. The federal government could be helping and supporting communities, both Indigenous and others across the country, as a way of building nation and dealing with the infrastructure they need, the way they need to create greater food security, the way they need to create housing. So those are the things that I think a federal government could be doing if it truly wanted to build nations, and that it would be beneficial to our Indigenous communities across the country.
Il faut,
Allez-y.
il faut se souvenir.
But we have to remember that today's headline, this thing about the dirty pipeline, the agreement about the dirty pipeline, this is also an issue for First Nations people.
Of the Northern Gateway Pipeline, which was shut down on environmental and Indigenous rights concerns many years ago. And of course, there's no business proponent for it. And the pipeline itself may be a distraction. I hope we get a chance to talk about that later. But I remember the community, Indigenous community in Bella Bella, when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was proposed. And the Environmental Review Panel went up to that community, and there were kids, 11, 12 years old, who found a new lease on life, who found reason and purpose and joy and collective struggle in resisting that pipeline. They made beautiful handmade signs, and they lined the little road from the small airport in Bella Bella when the review panel came to town. Do you remember this? And those folks from Ottawa went by in their cars. Someone got upset and banged a door or a window, and they were so afraid for their lives that they went back to the airport and they canceled the hearing. And those young people beat that pipeline, and they found a new lease on life and a new purpose in their communities, and we are going to ask them to fight it again. Completely unacceptable.
Monsieur Ashton, vous n'êtes pas encore intervenu là-dessus?
And to our Francophone listeners here, mon français isn't up to what it should be, but I am trying to learn. In regards to this, I don't have all the answers for working with or helping make life better for the Indigenous nations across this country, but what we all have to be willing to commit to is to listen, learn, and act. And it's with, like everybody said, with leaders like Leah and Lori and others, and Tennille. This is working together and understanding the issues and actually fixing them, not just playing lip service like liberals and conservatives do, actually doing justice to the injustices that have been done for a very long time.
Très bien. Il nous reste environ 1 minute. J'ai Mme McPherson et Mme Johnston qui voudraient...
Miss McPherson and Mr. Johnston. Yes, briefly. But it's essential that the voice of Indigenous persons should be heard. They need to participate. It's essential to have their voice within our party. And this is why, when I saw the work, and Tennille Johnson, each member of Parliament is working for the same goal, and it's important. Each MP must work together. We need collective efforts. Ms. Johnston?
Something simple like making sure that there are ballot boxes in every nation's community across this country is something very simple that we can do as the NDP, and not just do it because we're hoping for a vote. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui conclut cette section sur la justice.
Thank you. That concludes this section on Indigenous justice and reconciliation. Now, an important topic, which is organizing and winning in Quebec. There are many Quebecers who have very progressive views. They've shown this in the past on economic issues or social issues. And yet the NDP right now holds a single seat only, Mr. Bouleris was with us earlier, 1 out of 78. So here's the question, and it's very simple, and for most of you, it's the first time we'll be hearing from you on this topic. Why is it that there's only one NDP seat in Quebec? And what are you proposing we do to change this to win further seats in Quebec? Mr. Lewis first. We have to say it. Life is getting increasingly difficult in Quebec. The rent is through the roof now. University tuition is too expensive, and many people can't find a family physician, and some physicians are leaving. Quebecers are looking for truly progressive solutions. They want bold ideas, public options for groceries, for housing, for cell phone services. They don't want dirty pipelines, not here, not elsewhere. They want solidarity rather than blaming the most vulnerable members of society. Here in Quebec, we have to take those seats. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. McPherson, our party cannot find its way back to power without Quebec. I'd like to thank my friend and colleague Alex Bouleris for his work here in Quebec. And he mustn't remain alone here in Quebec. I know that I have to work on my French, I know, but already I've gone knocking on doors and I've met with members all across the province. We have to be there, we have to be present. Our party is strong because we are close to our communities. Thank you. Mr. McQuail now. If we want to win the 99%, we have to work with the other parties who have a progressive and green view. We have to build a coalition, a progressive and green-centered coalition to win here in Quebec. Mr. Ashton, we need Quebec to win. I understand the importance of Quebec. I have to speak better French to better connect with Quebecers. We must win, not only here in Montreal. We have to speak out to the people in the regions and to workers everywhere in Quebec. We have to work with the unions. We have to be more present in Quebec, and we have to speak to people about things that are important to them. I respect the French language in Quebec. I respect the Sherbrooke Declaration, and I will learn French because it's important. The NDP has to lead workers to victory. Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Now we'll move on to the open debate on this topic. Now you all agree that Quebec is important, the French language is important, but let's take this further. You individually, why are you the person that will let the NDP in Quebec win? What are you proposing, Ms. McPherson? Well, for instance, for me, the pathway for the NDP, the pathway to success comes through Quebec. This is very important. We have to keep support. Remember remember Jack Layton and the Orange Wave in 2011? That was largely thanks to Quebec. And I went to Quebec City last week because I want to meet militants there, activists and candidates in Quebec. And now, this is very important. Each candidate, each member of parliament visits every region. It's important for us to be present everywhere in Quebec. We have to get back to today's headlines. Quebecers want a climate change champion. They've already demonstrated. You have shown a good example of this here. Hundreds of thousands of persons went down into the street over the past year. Quebec is the graveyard of dirty pipelines. And if Legault and Carney aren't listening, well, the message is clear. They won't be able to resuscitate their zombie pipeline projects here in Quebec. And the NDP has this incredible opportunity. We have to take up the torch again and become the climate leaders once again here in Quebec. This is very important. It's a fundamental issue. And our party has an advantage in this respect here.
So we need to have Ruth Ellen Russell.
Come to Quebec. We need an energy that can unite our rural ridings. So often we hear from our rural ridings, our rural candidates, that they feel like they were left in the dust, that the strategy didn't complement them, that even the materials that they were receiving just didn't really align with the types of language that they need to use in their community to resonate with their people. And we need to leverage that. We need to leverage the expertise and the energy and the dedication and just honor that in our candidates in rural ridings so that we can deliver a message that resonates, so that we can work together, we can reroute our values, and we can win in rural ridings, but we need to listen to them. We need to hear their message, and we need to embed that in our strategy and carry it forward together.
Monsieur Ashton.
Mr. Ashton.
Months ago, I never saw myself standing in a leadership debate, so I guarantee you that I've been working on my en français, but I'm going to continue to bust my butt on that. But we're lucky because the language of the working class rises above any language in the world. And that's what we're going to be speaking to people in Quebec, to Quebecers. We're going to be working hard to fight for the working class in this province. But people go, what's the working class? The working class is everybody that does not own the means of production. And so we'll be looking to fight for people that are on disability, people that are on old age security. And these fights, they go above and beyond languages. But as I say that, I know that from now on, I'll be trying to squeak in a sentence or two in public debates or public discussions after this debate in en français.
Merci, Monsieur Ashton. Monsieur McQuill.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton.
Les associations de conscription locale, autant
From the base, bring people together, urban and rural. We want to put together a progressive green initiative that has to be done before an election. And we want to present a candidate. We want to have a candidate in the different ridings.
multicultural, multilingual country is both a great challenge and a great opportunity of diversity. But the thing that I can bring to this, when you asked what can you bring, in the 1980s, our provincial party was organizing what they called pack rat drives, where they went in and did urban stuff, trying to get pre-authorized checking donations, monthly donations. They weren't interested in our little rural ridings, but we organized field mice campaigns with the few activists from several different ridings getting together and going out where polls had 10% support and saying, okay, can we find that 1 in 10 family and phone through the phone book and find the people and bring them in as members? And that's what we're going to have to do. Okay. But I also think we have to be realistic that at the moment, 55 of our ridings in Quebec have the same president. Friends, we have an awful lot of work to do.
Écoutez mes gars.
So listen, guys, we need to talk. If we want to come back in Quebec, we need to speak to Quebecers in their language. Right now, we're not up to the job to come back in strength. We need to develop a clear offer in French focused on Quebecers' needs. It will take some time, but it is necessary and essential. We need to do it, we have to do it, and we will do it. Ms. McPherson and Ms. Johnson after. Well, rebuilding the party has to go through our riding associations. That's true. And it is necessary for each candidate to identify very early, to find candidates to identify early, to support the riding associations to raise funds, to prepare ourselves for a good campaign. It's very important to work on that in Quebec.
What Avi, you're saying around the language barrier, I do believe we can absolutely rise above that, and part of that work of connecting with your local champions, the folks that live and breathe in community all day long, is just that. I don't believe that a language barrier should prevent us from being great. I think we can work across that. I think we can bridge that. I think everybody up here, I like to believe, that is dedicated to learning the French language. On a personal note, my adult life has been spent trying to hone my native language of Likola. We only have about maybe 6 to 10 fluent language speakers that speak Likola in my community of all our Likola speakers. So I really feel the commitment deep to language. As Quebec do, as Francophone folks do, and I really hope that we can bridge that gap. I am truly deeply committed to access to French across our country in a super equitable way, because I know what it feels like to have your language threatened.
Carl, on pense toujours au Québec à notre ami Jack Layton. Je n'ai pas la moustache.
So when I think about Jack Layton, I don't have a mustache or like my friend Rob, but I know that Quebecers are thirsty and hungry for a solution. And perhaps one day with a mustache, we also need to do a lot of work. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we're going to move on to a rapid-fire questions.
Fair questions to try to get to know you a little better. And so let me ask you, and we're going to go from my left to my right, what is something that might surprise us about you, Mr. Ashton?
About me? I love classical music. That's how I do my work when I'm in the office.
Adam Johnston, same question. What could surprise us about you?
If you weren't paying attention super closely to the last election, I want to give a shout out to our team. We actually did very, very, very well, all things considering the result. We had over 26,000 people vote NDP, vote for me in North Island, Powell River, in a rural riding where it is very challenging to get to your ballot box. And it's something that I like to give thanks to every chance I get.
Mr. Lewis, something that could be surprising to us.
Well, I've never said this in public before, but I can sing every word of every song in the musical The Pajama Game because it's about labor rights. But I actually have an allergy to musicals, and when they come on or someone starts singing them, I laugh hysterically until I cry. And so it's become a party game for people to put musicals on so they can watch me lose it.
All right, something surprising about you, Ms. McPherson.
Well, something surprising about me, I guess one of my very favorite things to do is bake. I'm a big baker, and I like to make protest cookies. It's one of my very favorite things. I've made anti-scab cookies. I've made cookies that are against bills that we don't like. I've made cookies for members of this government who are attacking the Rocky Mountains, trying to open up coal mining. So, you know, protest cookies is a thing. Hit them with the sweetness.
Did you bring any for us?
Absolutely. They're in the back.
Mr. McQuill, something surprising about you.
Well, I'm a holistic management certified educator, and it was one of the early triple bottom lines: look after the land, look after the people, look after your income. And after we first took the course, we bought a horse-powered snow scoop, and we clean our lane on the snow belt of Huron County with a team of horses and a snow scoop.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup pour ces réponses. Intéressant.
Thank you very much for these answers. And now the second question. Apart from the city where you live, what is your favorite city?
Okay, Ms. McPherson.
Well, come on. Le Montréal. C'est nécessaire.
It's necessary in Montreal. And it's a very beautiful city. And I love the city of Montreal, really. All right. So we're trying to speak to Montrealers, Toronto, Vancouver, and Quebec City, all three. Ms. Johnston, what is your favorite city, apart from your community?
City, because it's too small, but the true west coast of Vancouver Island is Tofino, and it's beautiful.
Très bien. Monsieur Ashton, votre ville préférée?
It's going to be Montreal
Mr. Ashton, your favorite town?
because of the strong débardeurs and the checkers in this community who fight for the rights of workers.
C'est vrai que les débardeurs...
It's true that the longshoremen and dock workers are very well known for their enthusiasm. Now let's speak to workers. About workers, we're going to speak about the role of workers and the labor movement in general. So during the NDP played a significant role for workers, and under the previous government, the NDP secured significant gains for workers, including the adoption of a federal anti-scab legislation, the introduction of a 2-week paid sick leave for workers in federally regulated sectors. But despite this, and despite the history of the labor movement with the NDP, during the last election, many other parties approached workers and unions and convinced them to vote for them rather than to vote for the NDP. So what will you do to win back these voters? Ms. McPherson. Well, I'm very proud of the anti-scab legislation of the NDP. And once again, the credit goes to Mr. Boulris. And also, workers built this party, and they must remain at the heart of this party. The NDP has always been their answer, and the NDP must continue to help workers. It's our responsibility. I am proud of the party's history that defend the rights of partners and protect each job. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Mr. McQuail, the role of unions. When we talk about workers, our arms are wide open, and we speak for the 99%. Some people are unionized, others are not. We need our work should compensate people.
All people.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Il faut limiter l'intelligence artificielle à cause
And limit AI because of its impact on employment and workers. We need to draw a red line in terms of AI because the Matrix organization and AI. Thank you, Mr. Ashton. You're the head of a labor movement. How should we bring back workers within the NDP? We must go back to our roots. This means listening to workers. They have a word to say, and all Canada can win better salary, better economy, more stable economy, and I will fight to provide access to unions, protect the right to vote, create well-paying and good jobs. The NDP wants to create a more just country. So is there a way to bring back workers to the NDP? Well, before we were an alliance between workers, farmers, who worked together during the fascist trend. But the working class has changed a lot. Today, they do work for hire. We find them in our boutiques, our call centers. The unions are at the heart of our party. These workers are the majority in Canada, and they're crushed by the cost of living. And so they're the ones who can benefit the most from our solutions. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Johnston. I respect unions in Quebec and in Canada. We must listen to them. We need more unions in every sector, and we must improve the lives of workers everywhere. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the open section on the role of unions for the NDP and the way to bring back these voters. When we think about the last elector, the Conservative Party received a lot of support from unions. How come the Conservatives' message is going through but not that of the NDP? Who would like to start? Ms. McPherson. It's an essential question because when we speak to workers, it's important for us to speak to them about the important topics, the cost of life, jobs, to protect jobs, and also to talk about housing for each worker in this country. The housing crisis is so important. The cost of living crisis is significant. So it's important for us to speak simply, clearly, and with discipline. Mr. Ashton and Mr. McWhale.
A leader that actually comes from the working class, that has led workers for a generation. That person is me. Because we need to defend against somebody like Pierre Poilievre, who cosplays as a worker, who doesn't even own a pair of work boots like the pair I'm wearing tonight. A Liberal government that does nothing but hurt workers by sending them back to work, and they actually intentionally fight for employers. We need to get back to our rural roots, as MP Gorjan does. We have to fight like heck to get rid of Section 107, as per Leah Gazan. And like our friend MP McPherson just said, MP Bellarice helped bring in anti-scab legislation. We must get back to a party. We must stand up for the workers in this country, both unionized and non-union. People that can't go to work for whatever reason, this party must get back to its roots and fight like hell for every worker in this country and defend against the ruling class that wish to rip us apart and divide us. I'll stop there and share the time.
All right, Mr. McWhale, then Ms. Johnston and Mr. Lewis.
Mes amis, if the unions and their members don't believe we can win.
Dear friends, some people don't believe that we are going to win.
Behave strategically, and that is what has happened. And that is what will continue to happen as long as we play by the rules of the first-past-the-post system. It's kept the elites in power since before Confederation, and certainly after working men and women got the vote after the First World War. It's kept the United Farmers, the Independent Labor, the CCF, and now the NDP and the Green Party from getting their fair share of representation. And over time, as that keeps happening, the people who should be supporting us and who would like to see what we're talking about vote for other parties, they hold their nose, and each time they do that, they make the spread between the NDP and the Liberals or the Conservatives 2 votes instead of 1, because they take 1 away from us and give it to somebody else, or they just stop voting. And that is a reality that if we don't deal with it, none of what you're hearing today is going to get very far. And if we don't deal with that reality. So I'd like to hear from the other candidates where they stand on putting forward a strong plan or system for dealing with first past the post so it doesn't keep defeating us, and where they would stand if they were in a minority position or a government position in bringing in proportional representation.
Merci, M. McWhale. On verra si les candidats veulent répondre à votre question. On va commencer par Mme Johnston. M. Lewis.
Representation has to get into our government. Our workers, we need to show back up for workers. I don't feel we were present enough. I don't think we've invested enough in that relationship. We need to listen and then act. We need to protect our workers in every way we can. We should be championing card checking as a way to hopefully bring forward stronger unions, more unions. We should be looking at ways to keep our workers safe through things like supporting a nurse-to-patient ratio across the country, something that BC is implementing right now, but something that nationwide we should not have nurses that are overworked and pushed into very dangerous situations, all while they're just trying to care for Canadians across the country. So absolutely, we need to show up, we need to listen, and then we need to act.
Mr. Lewis.
En course de la campagne,
During the campaign, I visited a factory in Winnipeg, which is called New Flyer. I thought that I saw the future there. That's where they make buses, different types of buses, but in particular, electric buses.
the feeling was so strong on the floor. I was there with the Unifor rep, Mike, who took me around. And here's what they were doing. They were taking Canadian steel in one side of the factory. They were making it into bus parts. So it's much harder for the business to flee if it's ever bought by a foreign owner, because they make the parts, and then on the other side of the factory, they assemble the buses. They have batteries from Quebec. They are putting those buses out to municipalities across the land. This is using Canadian materials. It's a tariff-proof business. It's hiring local workers. They have $13.5 billion worth of orders waiting. And on the topic of public ownership and the federal government's role, there's a piece of federal land across the street that would be ideal for an expansion of the factory. But the feeling on the floor was so strong, those workers so proud of actually being part of something bigger than ourselves, way more than all that elbows up stuff. I felt that I saw Canadian workers building the future, and with public ownership, we can solve all those problems and slash our emissions at the same time.
Merci, M. Lewis. Il nous reste un peu moins de 2 minutes. Là, Mme McPherson et M. Ashton pour conclure.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Et je voudrais parler et mon...
I'd like to discuss my bill. This is a bill that aims at canceling the CLAC, CLAC. This is a corporate-based union. It's a bad union for all workers everywhere in the country, and it's an important step. It's important to counter this, to protect workers' rights in this country.
Representative of my union, I've seen far too many workers killed on the job, and I've seen far too many workers injured on the job. The United Steelworkers pushed for a bill called the Westray Law, which prosecuted employers when they killed their workers. It's been what? One company that's actually had somebody go to jail, maybe two. These employers, they know the labor code is written to work for them. The labor code is not written for laborers, for workers. So we have to fix the labor code so that workers can go to work and actually feel comfortable that they're going to come home alive. That's what we have to do as this party. If we want workers to come and join our party, to stand with us shoulder to shoulder to change this country, then we must be ready to fight like heck to help them, to make sure that they have a safe working environment. Because right now, the way the laws are written, it's like going to a casino.
C'est tout le temps qu'on avait pour cette section.
That's all the time we had for this section. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to the fifth section, which is the NDP's path forward.
But they've never done so at the federal level. It's never happened. There's a debate in the party about why this hasn't happened. This is your chance to address this. But let me ask you this. Have you learned any lessons from our provincial wings, from the provincial wings of the party that have formed government? Or do you believe that being the conscience of Parliament is good enough? I'm going to start with Mr. McQuail.
I got involved in 1980 because I wanted to change the way we treated each other and the way we treated the planet. I didn't get involved in politics to become a politician. I wanted to change what we did as a society. And I've been watching for 45 years, and I don't think we're making very good progress, either as a society or as a political party. Which is why what I'm saying is we have to figure out how to beat first past the post. And we also have to do what we've done in the past, which is build at the local riding level, figure out how to make membership work the best way a riding can raise money by figuring out a fair way of sharing money between the federal party, the provincial wings, and the local riding associations. And we've got to educate and communicate.
Thank you, Mr. McWell. Mr. Ashton, party of power or conscience of parliament?
Party of power, baby. We got to bring back this party to its roots. We got to be a voice for the working class, a voice for everyday working Canadians. We got to win back the voters that we lost, the working class wannabes, and show all voters that we can win. We got to go from the shop floor to the union hall. We got to earn people's trust back through our actions, not by what we're saying. We got to stop talking at people, but with people. We're going to build this party up by listening, organizing, and standing together. We're going to be a bottom-up movement, and we're going to be representing the voices of the people. We're not going to be speaking for them, we're going to be speaking with them.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Madame Johnston.
It's not good enough to not be a majority. We haven't seen the progress in our country because we haven't had enough leverage to make the changes in Canada that we need to have an inclusive Canada. Something that was inspirational that was happening in another province is actually the student movement that is completely left out of all of this. There is a phenomenal relationship, especially between the U of T NDP club and their provincial counterparts in the NDP. They do phenomenal work together. The students come out in 30 and 40 folks to come and help door knock in provincial elections. We're not seeing that turnout federally. That relationship is not there, and that has to change. We have to leverage our students that are active and passionate and want to do this work with us.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Carl, I'll address your false dichotomy in debate. The path forward for the NDP is to stay laser-focused on the everyday emergency of just trying to get by. Wealth taxes and public options are popular ideas. They're solutions for the 99%. Ideas like this won't just win us back voters, they'll bring in people who don't vote at all. We win by offering hope in hard times. Inside the party, we need to put members back in the driver's seat. These big solutions can only be won by big organizing. Riding associations should be 343 organizing hubs across the country. We show up for community struggles every single day, so communities show up for us at election time. This is how our comeback begins.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. McPherson.
Listen, we are stronger when we work together. We are stronger when we are united across the country and when we work with the provincial parties. I think that's very, very important. You know, we also need to take steps to support riding associations across this country so that they can nominate candidates sooner, so that they can raise the funds that they need to raise to run a strong campaign. You know, we've done that in my riding. We've done that in Alberta, and I know how to win. I know how to beat Conservatives, and I am excited, and I am willing, and I am eager to take the lessons that I have learned winning the strongest seat in the NDP and use those lessons across the country.
Thank you. We will now open the debate to all of you. You all come from a province that has had a government. You've had an NDP government in your provinces. So what have you learned? Is there something you've learned from your provincial NDP government? Mr. McWell wants to start.
If you win government, don't go home and leave the work to the people you elected. Get out in the street the next day and demand more so that the right can't shift the discussion away from the goals of the NDP. That's what I learned in Ontario in 1990. But I also learned that if you work with people as you develop policies and programs, because I was the executive assistant to the Minister of Agriculture, and we developed an environmental farm plan with the farm community, and also the farm business registration plan, which actually moves money to farm organizations so they can bring forward policy and have
Tony,
good
we only
debate.
got 8 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, but you've got 7 more, and there are only 4 more of you. Be patient, Avi. I got to speak in English. You got French to work with. So let me make my point. If you work with the people, that you're bringing forward ideas for, they last, because those two programs that the NDP brought in back in 1990 are still there after successive Liberal and Conservative governments. We've got to work with people. We've got to work from the ground up. And if you're a government, don't get too high and mighty, and at least bring in proportional representation for your province.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
This
over to you.
dichotomy of electability versus big, bold ideas, it's a false one. Big, bold ideas that actually are big enough to solve the epic crises we face are how we win. They're how we've always won. When Tommy Douglas brought in Medicare, it was not popular. He had to go to war with doctors. Everybody told him it's impractical, it's too big. And now we have changed the life of generations of Canadians in our daily lives, in our skin, and people will never forget the contribution we made. Look at Rob Canoe. You're asking about provincial premiers. Ran an election where he promised to search the landfill. It was not a popular idea at the time. It's a time for moral clarity and straight talk. And Wab ran on that. The Conservatives ran a disgusting racist campaign, advertising campaign against him. He won the election. He searched the landfill. He brought justice to those families. That's the NDP tradition we need. Solutions as big as the crises we face and the courage to speak straight and honest about them.
Okay, I've got Ms. McPherson, then Mr. Ashton.
Listen, when we win, when we elect more New Democrats, we get help for people. We get help for Canadians. And for me, I think about Rachel Notley. I think about what she did in Alberta, where she was able to cut child poverty in half, where she was able to take such important steps. And you know, I have to say, when Rachel Notley stood with me and endorsed me at my launch, I was extraordinarily proud, because rebuilding the relationship between the federal NDP and the provincial NDP was a goal of mine from the time I was elected in 2019. You know, when we win, when New Democrats get elected, we make life better for Canadians, and that is so important. That's why we're running. That's why it's so important that we win.
Mr. Ashton, then Ms. Johnston, and then Mr. McQuill wants to come back.
What I've learned from NDP governments in this country, or even NDP governments in waiting in this country, is we have to fight against the language of hate. Because if you look at the right wing of this country and the right wing of the United States, and I mean the far right wing, is they tell us that we have to hate our neighbor. They tell us if you're angry and your life is tough and you're not getting by, it's because of your neighbor. That's so not right, and it's so not true. You see, if you look at what Jack did, he led with hope, love, justice, and he lifted our party up. And unfortunately, his life was cut too short, or we would have formed government in this country. And if you look what they're doing in Manitoba and BC, what they did in Alberta, when the NDP takes power, they show people that it's okay to love each other, that it's okay to give somebody a hand up. That's what we have to do with workers today, is we have to show them a path forward, one that isn't filled with hate and bigotry and misogyny, a path forward but helping your neighbor and not holding them down.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Ms. Johnston.
Yeah, having an NDP government means that we get to push back when there's a racist items being tabled in the House of Commons, in Parliament. We just went through a horrific situation in BC where we had a party table legislation that looked to ban the use of any 2S LGBTQIA flag being flown. And it was disgusting. I am so proud that our NDP government made sure that bill did not pass. We're not going to see that enacted. It's not going to go any further. And I'm proud that we have a leader that is going full on against the pipeline threat that appears to be coming strong and hard from Alberta and from the Liberal Party, from Mark Carney. But we must always, always, always stay connected to the grassroots. You are our party. The people are the party. We are just conduits to bring our message forward. The people need to feel and hear themselves in this party because they are what's driving us forward.
Thank you. Mr. McQuill, you want to add something?
Yes. That issue of staying connected to our roots and the communities. And one of the things that gives me hope at a time when I can feel very despairing is what I know about the people who are working in their communities on things that relate to the environment or to energy. And I think we have to be sure that we are talking strongly to them about how they can help build a future they want for their children and their grandchildren. That's part of why I'm here. But I think as part of that, we need to be brave enough to challenge the capitalist, corporate, consumerist ideology that I've watched for 45 years take us down a path of growth. Growth that makes the rich richer, makes the earth poorer, and makes communities have less and less that they can work on and share. So we have to also talk about degrowth, degrowing a cancerous economic theory and system, and figuring out how we can do a better job of sharing and caring for each other by doing less materially, both energy and resources.
Carl, we haven't talked enough about what happened today. We're talking about the path back for the party. This is a moment where only the NDP would say things about this deal that Carney has signed with Danielle Smith, throwing out all the climate legislation, the meager progress the Liberals had made. This is the sellout of the century. And as people look into this deal, they're going to see that the pipeline might just be a distraction. I do have a message for you in Ottawa, Prime Minister Carney. This pipeline will not be built, not in BC, not here in Quebec, not anywhere. It is not going to happen. But more than that, this sellout of the century is about AI. It's about massive, dirty electricity to power AI. It's going to reconfigure the electricity system of the Western provinces to feed oil and gas instead of the power lines, not pipelines, that we need to get off oil and gas once and for all. Our path back as a federal party, and we will have to navigate with love and care relationships with the provincial sections. Our path back lies through climate leadership, climate clarity, the courage to tell the truth, and to say we have to get off all fossil fuels, including LNG, as soon as possible. We need to build those jobs first, though, because transition is the last word a worker hears before they get screwed. So on an urgency basis, on an emergency basis, we need to be building, under public ownership, clean jobs in renewable energy, in an electric bus revolution, so that those jobs are waiting for oil and gas workers, because workers can't transition to a promise or an idea. The jobs need to be waiting.
Workers are the epicenter of our economy, and we have to treat.
Very well. Ça termine ce 5e segment.
So this concludes the 5th segment, and we have...
Alors, on va commencer en...
So once again, we're going to start from the left to the right, and we'll come back for the other question. Rob Ashton, what was your first job?
I worked at
En
a place
français,
called...
s'il vous plaît.
Oh, Jesus.
In French, please. I worked in a liquidation area? Yes. Ms. Johnston, your first job. I worked at Dairy Queen. Well, wonderful, tasty. I sold cars in the street. Ms. McPherson, your first job. I was a swimming instructor for children. Yes, swimming, thank you. Mr. McWhale, what was your first job? I worked for an arborist. Ah, interesting, interesting.
Question, Mr. McWhell, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, in some ways, it was advice from a team of horses I was trying to work with, and that was that anger doesn't get you anywhere. Because if you get pissed off at horses, they just get nervous and unhappy, and things go really badly. So learning to work with horses helped me to learn work better with others and get a better control. Because I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, father, and he bottled anger, and then it came out. So, yeah, horses maybe taught me some of the best lessons in my life.
Ms. McPherson, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I think about being a member of Parliament, and I think about Charlie Angus, and he used to sit right in front of me in the Parliament. And I remember him telling me one day that you can waste a lot of time writing a speech, or you can spend that time doing things that are more fun. So you got to be brave, you got to put yourself out there, you got to be willing to go for it. And I think about Charlie when I think about things like this debate this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, what is the best advice you've ever received?
When I was in Argentina 20 years ago making my first documentary film, The Take, about workers taking over their factories and running them as democratic cooperatives, this is advice that they gave us that I want to share with the workers at the Cami plant in Ingersoll, where the company has gone back to the United States and they've said if they go for the machines, they will occupy the plant. And I remember sleeping on the floor of factories defending the machines. So what the workers in Argentina say is occupy, resist, and produce. Best advice ever.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Madam Johnston, what is the best advice?
Ms. Johnston, what's the best advice?
Part of our culture where you don't receive a name until you're about 10 months old. And so the name that was given to me was La Colocua, which loosely translates to speaks loud or voice is heard. And so I definitely feel like that is advice that was given to me very young in age, is to say the things. Because there's someone out there that maybe isn't going to say them and wants to hear them or needs you to say them. So I think that's something that I carry very near and dear. And then the other thing that kind of made me laugh when you asked that question is the immediate image that came into my brain was actually of Disney's Aladdin, which is a controversial movie. But the genie turns into a little bee and he whispers, "Be yourself." And that's something that I hear all the time, is to keep it genuine and be yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Ashton, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Be kind to people, because you just never know what's actually happening in their lives. So always try to be kind.
Thank you. I'm going to add a question of my own because we have a few minutes left before we go to the closing statement. Oui, vous allez souffrir encore un peu.
Okay.
So you will suffer a little more.
Why do you...
I'll ask the question in English.
In 15 seconds or less, Mr. Ashton.
To provide better lives for people of this country, and to stop the lying and the quite frankly BS that comes out of Ottawa from every party but the NDP.
Madam Johnston.
I'm here to bring the NDP a big win in the next election. If we win big in the next election, and then we win even bigger after that, and we're staring Prime Minister in the face, and I'm still your person, let's do it. But I'm here to nation build. I'm here to bring a collective that's strong and fierce and is going to win victory in the next election so that NDP can take a meaningful step into that majority position.
Mr. Lewis, do you want to be Prime Minister of Canada?
We are posed at the brink of the most serious crises in human history. And in a country like Canada, awash in wealth, every single person deserves to live a dignified life with all of their needs met as we fight the rise of fascism, which is feeding on the soil of economic desperation. To be Prime Minister in this country and deliver those things would prevent unbelievable suffering that we're in for otherwise.
Ms. McPherson, why do you want to be Prime Minister of Canada?
I want to change the systems that are hurting Canadians. I want to change the systems that are making our country unjust, that are leading to greater inequality. And I think when you Democrats win, we change those systems. We make life better for Canadians. That's why I'm running to be the leader of the NDP.
Mr. McQuail, you're the last one. I'm asking the question. Why do you want to be Prime Minister of Canada?
Same reason I ran in 1980. I want to change how we treat each other, and I want to change how we treat the world. My 45 years of experience in politics and my over 50 years of experience as a farmer has told me that you can make change. One of the things I've worked on is developing a holistic goal for Canada that talks about the kind of things that we'd like in our quality of life and the kind of dreams we have for the future, based on my conversations with people that I've met and talked to and also worked with as a teacher. And we need a vision, we need a goal to bring people together, to bring our provincial and federal party together, to bring people to us. But we need that vision and we need to be able to work on it.
Thank you. Alors, le débat tire à sa fin. Nous allons terminer.
So the debate is nearing the end, and we will end with the closing remarks and you were asked to prepare them. 45 seconds in French, and we will start with Tenille Johnston. We need a leader who can help energize and grow our party and who will lead us to victory. Today, we can build a solid party. Together, we can build, and thank you very much. We need to be solitary. Mr. Ashton, over to you. Thank you. You've heard that my French is not perfect, but 2 months from now, 2 months ago, I never would have thought I would be in a French-speaking debate. Quebec and French are important for me. I'm working hard. I want to bring the NDP back to its roots, a party that fights for workers. That is how we're going to win, not just in Montreal and in big cities. I think that I'm the right choice for this. Solidarity, my friends. Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Mr. McWhale, over to you. My friends, we have a lot of work to do. We need to rebuild the NDP party as a party for all. And we need to build a progressive coalition. We need to open our arms wide and welcome so many people, especially those who don't vote anymore, because they no longer believe in the political system. We also need to speak to liberals and the conservatives. My friends, if we work together, we'll be able to build a wonderful future, one that we can be proud of. Thank you, Mr. McWhale. Mr. Lewis, we can live in a society that is based on solidarity, where rentals are reasonable, the sky doesn't have any smoke, and transportation is financed. It works and it's free. That world is possible, but we need to create it together. And so that is why I am running to become the leader of the NDP, to put hope before fear, to offer solutions that are as great as the crises we're going through, to fight against a government that stops using money and starts serving people. Thank you, and have a good evening. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. McPherson. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to everyone who listened to this debate. It's now time to act. I have the experience to rebuild this party and win. Yes, we must all continue to work on our French, because our pathway to true victory has to go through Quebec, through each French-speaking community, including my own. The NDP must become once again the party that takes a stand for family and helps Canadians. I know that we can do it, and I am ready to do it right now. Thank you, Ms. McPherson. Thanks to each and every one of you. Tenille Johnson, Rob Shaw, no, that's someone else. Rob Ashton, Tenille Johnston, Avi Lewis, Heather McPherson, and Tony McWhale, thank you so much for taking part in this debate. It wasn't always easy, but I think that you were able to contribute in your own way, and this is a very important exercise in democracy, and I thank you for taking part in this debate. Thank you to everyone who were tuned in at home.
In February 2026 in the BC's Lower Mainland, and the NDP leader will be announced at the NDP convention in March in Winnipeg. Alors, je remercie bien sûr toute l'équipe technique, les techniciens.
I'd like to thank all the technical team, everyone who took part in organizing this debate. Thank you for being here, and my name is Carl, and I say goodbye and see you next time.